So Eddie Hearn says he made a huge offer to Frank Warren for Anthony Yarde to face Joshua Buatsi. It's a fight we'd all like to see, but at the moment, according to both Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, Anthony Yarde is looking to fight Joe Smith Jr. for the WBO World Light Heavyweight title. Yarde is currently the Intercontinental Champion with that organization and also the #1 contender. I'm not sure if he's mandatory at the moment, if that's been called, but you can fully understand why they'd be looking to fight Joe Smith Jr. before Joshua Buatsi right now. Now, Eddie Hearn said that he'll be paid double or more than double to fight Joshua Buatsi as opposed to Joe Smith Jr. right now. He says the Joshua Buatsi fight is much more lucrative financially, a bigger fight, and I'm sure that's true. But again, Frank Warren responded with a very good retort. He said, well, if Anthony Yarde can go and beat Joe Smith Jr., the Joshua Buatsi fight is even bigger again. So what Eddie Hearn considers to be a huge offer would look insignificant compared to the amount of money that they could make from a world title fight between Anthony Yarde and Joshua Buatsi. But having said that, if Anthony Yarde was to beat Joe Smith Jr., he'd be looking to, I'm talking about Frank Warren here, he'd be looking to match Anthony Yarde against another one of his fighters in Callum Johnson rather than Joshua Buatsi anytime soon. So to me, that sounds like Joshua Buatsi might have to maneuver himself into a mandatory position. Now, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here because Anthony Yarde hasn't fought Joe Smith Jr. yet. We don't know what's going to happen, whether he definitely will fight him, if he gets made mandatory, if he's mandatory already, when that fight gets called. There's a lot of ifs and there's a lot of unknowns at the moment. And if he does fight Joe Smith, will he even beat him? Again, this is an unknown. With Joshua Buatsi, he's got his own path, obviously. He's trying to get a big fight. He was supposed to fight a few weeks ago, but he got injured or ill, whatever it was. So, yeah, Joshua Buatsi apparently wants to kick on and fight somebody serious at this point. That's what he's instructed Eddie Hearn to get him, a serious opponent, as in he'll fight one of the champions right now, apparently, without fighting Vlasov first or whatever. So, hats off to Joshua Buatsi for wanting to be out there. But also, Frank Warren did say that he thinks Eddie Hearn has only made this offer right now for the Joshua Buatsi Anthony Yarde fight because he knows that Anthony Yarde is not going to take the fight right now because he's focused on the fight against Joe Smith Jr. Also, he thinks that Joshua Buatsi, well, I don't know whether he genuinely thinks it, but he says that Joshua Buatsi is basically on the outside looking in the light heavyweight scene right now, and that Eddie Hearn has failed to get him the meaningful fights that he desires. But, you know, you expect that kind of back and forth between different promoters. I think both of them make good points. To be fair, I think Frank Warren makes some good points. I think Eddie Hearn makes some good points. It's a fight that we would all love to see. I'm just not sure that Frank Warren would want that fight anytime soon, even if Anthony Yarde becomes WBO light heavyweight champion. Probably going to do the Callum Johnson fight with Yarde before then. And so Buatsi, one of the things Frank Warren suggested is that he should fight Callum Smith. And it does make sense, but you're getting into this situation where both promoters are trying to do in-house fights and they're suggesting in-house fights for the other. That's one thing that Leonard Ellaby always does. When people suggest these cross-promotional fights between Tank Davis and, you know, somebody else, let's say Devin Haney, Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellaby always turn around and say, oh, why don't they fight one of their own guys? It's like, hang on, you've got somebody trying to do a cross-promotional fight and you're discouraging them from doing that? See, that's unfortunate, and obviously it's because they want to do everything in-house. And doing everything in-house doesn't benefit the fans because we want to see cross-promotional fights. Now, this is not UFC. Shout out to UFC, by the way, and the fighters, at least in UFC. In boxing, there's a lot more promoters, big promoters, and we don't want to see them trying to recreate UFC and just only fighting, you know, only putting on matches between their own fighters. No, we want to see all the cross-promotional stuff going on. And so Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn are both at this point a little guilty in certain situations of trying to keep things in-house, not wanting to risk their cash cow fighters or some of their cash cow fighters against cash cow fighters of other organizations. Now, it's not with all their fighters that they're doing this. There's only a few of them, okay? And with Eddie Hearn, it's specifically Conor Benn. And I'll come on to that in a separate one. But with Frank Warren, he's doing it a little bit with Anthony Yarde. Some people could say Tyson Fury, but how much influence does Frank Warren really have over Tyson Fury's career? Isn't it more Bob Arum and MTK rather than Frank Warren? I don't know. You guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. So the Joshua Buatsi Anthony Yarde fight potentially could be made right now, but I can't blame Frank Warren and Anthony Yarde and whoever else is involved there in his management. I guess Tunde Ajayi. I can't blame them for not having that fight right now and instead going for the Joe Smith Jr. fight. And what do you guys think about that particular matchup? How do you think Anthony Yarde would fare against Joe Smith Jr. right now? Leave the comments in the comment section below.